The first time I had a cosmic orgasm, we went through the process of making love. We say 21 days, but for us at that time, it was probably longer than that. And it was an everyday process. And before we had got to this point, we had done all this work together, independently and together. We would meditate with each other every day. Shalom could feel where my energy was. I could feel where his was. And I still had this aspect inside of myself that was seated so deep from trauma that I had done my own work to release it. I had gone to retreats. I'd done my own inner work with it. But there was just this idea still of like repressed shame or guilt around it. When we went to make love one day, he could feel this sense of energetic block within me. And it was from that experience of my past. And literally, I got to this moment when we were making love, and he and I went so deep into the experience that trauma literally popped outside of me as this like energetic thought bubble. That's what it felt like. And I felt this big release of energy just released from my body, and I felt completely free and completely unhinged, and I felt like I could just soften into this experience with Shalom, and it became this massive orgasm that began to just snowball and snowball and snowball. And it was so big, the energy was so big around it that it just changed the way that we made love after that. Every time we made love after that, we were able to get past that doorway that we felt, that bridge that we felt. And this experience became our norm, and we wanted to go deeper and deeper, deeper into those depths. But that first cosmic orgasm that you have, it will challenge you to go beyond any limitations that you still have remaining. Of course, it is your job to break your own limitations first before you meet with your partner. But there's something so sacred that happens, and there's this encoding, there's this healing that happens from the process with the partner when you show up ready and open and just to what the depths of where you can go together. And the cosmic orgasm is everybody's birthright. There is something that changes inside of you when you have this deep experience of connectivity, of love, of devotion, of reverence with your partner and with Source as a whole. So we understand this to be the way that everyone should have sex, because you're connecting with an aspect of yourself that is missed, that feels so far away from you, because most of us walk around disconnected from the source within us. So we go into sex that way, and we just expect that to be the norm of what happens during sex. But when you release those limitations and you just simply say, and you go deep into your heart and simply say, what happens if I cross this bridge inside of me and I just let go? And the cosmic orgasm is what happens. That is what happens. And then you become more and more comfortable with yourself in this experience. And it becomes the only experience that you want within the act of sex and with your partner and within your union.
The day that we actually had one of our workshops and we were preparing to go through the breathing exercises for the cosmic orgasmic, procedure or experience, I literally thought we were going to just be doing some guided meditation with some breathing. We were in a hotel conference room at a table, fully clothed, and Victoria began to lead us, and it was gentle. Everyone had their eyes closed. We were breathing, we were focusing. They invited us to bring our guides in. And I have a very beautiful, strong connection with my own personal guides. And my guides were very excited to be in the space. And everyone just was breathing and there for the experience. And I started to feel energy in my body. And like I said, I didn't know what to expect. So I was just fully present with it. I had zero attachment to it. I just allowed the energy to be with me in my body. And as Victoria calmly guided us through the meditation, through the body, I felt the energy growing. And it was stimulating. It was sensual. yet not sexual, yet a sexual energy, but it felt very appropriate and very meant to be in the moment. I wasn't afraid of it. It felt like it was supposed to be happening. And as the energy began to build, I just felt a lot of bliss in my body. I felt a very gentle warmth in my body. I didn't feel any fear. I didn't feel any shame. Maybe for a moment's thought, I considered my surroundings, being in a room, but I knew that I was safe. I knew I was protected. I knew that that's why all of us were there. And I felt like I could have whatever experience was coming for me. And so it turned into what felt like waves on my body. Again, it was so gentle. It was so beautiful. And it felt so incredibly big beyond me. It felt like there was a presence, like a godlike presence, universal presence, the community that I was surrounded, Shalom and Victoria's presence, their energy. And it felt like it was taking me somewhere. And it didn't feel like a traditional peak of a sexually stimulated orgasm. It just felt like it had this power to grow me and to expand me and to connect me with something. And you know, when you're having a physical sexual orgasm from stimulation, there's this peak and there's this moment where time stands still, but the energy is very focused because it's so much in our bodies. And this definitely had that feeling of time standing still, but it felt like an infinite realm, that it was just everything available to me. I felt so incredibly powerful while sitting there doing absolutely nothing except for receiving what was meant for me. And that, for me as a woman, to be fully in my feminine energy and to feel that blessing and that bliss and that alignment with everything that was possible, was one of the most beautiful moments of my life. And I was so happy. I'm always trying so hard in my life to understand myself, to do the best that I can, to evolve myself, to grow myself. And I often, like many people, think that there's so many things that I have to do to make the experiences happen. And that was one of the strongest moments for me, where I felt just held, supported, and just really so good. I felt so good. And so I just wrote it out, and it felt like bliss. It felt like sexual union with the divine. It felt like the moment for me. I felt energy off in the distance. I felt what it felt like to feel the energy of the person who was meant to be in alignment with me. I felt his energy very, very far in the distance. I felt so much peace in my heart as a woman.
I'm making love to Victoria one day, and we're going for hours, like legit. Like at this point in my journey, my stamina is completely different. I have a sense of energy. Every woman prior to Victoria was, I can say, impressed with what I knew sexually. They felt like it was a mind-blowing experience to experience someone with energy or energetic alignment. And I would get all this communication about it. And this started to make me wonder what has changed about me in my journey. What was different? But when I got to Victoria, she was slightly impressed. She wasn't as impressed as everyone else. She was in the middle. And I looked in her eyes one day. We're making love, and we're going on about a few hours. And I'm giving it all I got. I really feel like she should be mind blown by now. And she simply was not. I looked in her eyes, and for the first time, I could look in her eyes and see she wanted more. And I didn't have that more. I didn't know where it was. I have it, it's within me, but no other woman has asked for it. So in that moment, I began to really sit with myself and really go deeper. And I believe that session ended. And I really, really said to myself, I gotta bring everything that I got this is important. I gotta bring everything that I got to this sexual experience with my partner, to this intimacy, to this connection. Going for hours wasn't the answer, but she just was looking in my eyes like, this is it? Like, this is what we're just gonna keep going? It was like, no, I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna figure it out. Like, I know there's more as well. I just never had anyone call it out of me.
I want to share something that's been very personal for me, and personal because it was about my sexual abuse. Recently heard some statistics that say 1 out of every 6 men is sexually abused. Men. And that it takes an average of 24 years for a man to even address that issue. And the average age for abuse is about 11 and a half years old. After I was sexually abused, I became very shameful about sex, about how it made me feel. But at the same time, I was very determined to choose to heal from that. What I did was I ended up sleeping with a lot of women. It became my own way of showing love. And it was a way to control that love and not be hurt. As I've grown as a man through being able to express and release that abuse from my life, it took a hard time to even be able to mumble these words. I'm having trouble with mumble. It was hard to mumble, to say, to speak that I was sexually abused because it carried with it so much shame. Even to a therapist in a private session, I couldn't speak it because that showed that I was vulnerable and that I was weak, that I had been abused. Couldn't be anything further from the truth. As I've had my own kids and I've looked at their young ages and their innocence, I realized that I had to give myself a little bit of a break and not be so hard on myself. As I started that journey of my healing and made peace with it, one of the things that helped me make peace with it was just being able to talk about it and not feel like I was being judged. I came across cosmic sexuality because I was having trouble expressing and feeling intimate. I realized that sleeping with lots of women was not the answer to happiness, and that actually connecting with a partner, connecting with intimacy, feeling love, eye gazing, feeling that energy, knowing that you're in the exact same space was a far more enriching experience than a one-night stand.
It all started with me making a phone call to Shalom, and I was talking about my life and my life being in turmoil. At the time, it was in the middle of the pandemic. I was just stressed out. I lost my job. Nothing was working. It felt like my reality was falling apart. And the first question Shalom asked me, and one of the only questions he asked me, is, are you releasing? Are you ejaculating? Are you masturbating? Any of that? And he was like, be honest, I know it was sensitive. And I said, yes. And he said, all I'm going to say is there's a connection between your life and your reality and that. And you should, work with me and we could look into it. And I was like, okay. And I was excited. It gave me hope. So what happened next was I started to really try to implement the things that I learned with my girlfriend. And that was what we call practicing semen retention and learning to trust myself and not releasing every time I had sexual intercourse. And what I noticed was groundbreaking, and it changed me in a lot of ways. One, it gave me hope for the future of my relationship. And as a man, I'll be 50, in 8 years. I definitely want to make sure I'm sexually virile and strong, and I'm able to pleasure the person that I love. What I noticed that was most fundamental is that every time I made love with my girlfriend, And trust me, I'm a beginner here, so I'm coming from a beginner's perspective. My passion grew immensely. And the more that I didn't release, the more connection I had with my girlfriend, and the more that passion grew. And it gave me hope because I was able to continuously or extend my sexual connection with my girlfriend in these sacred moments. And eventually, the goal of ejaculation was something that was far removed. I didn't want to do it. Now, again, I'm human. And, I had to make a call to Shalom one day and say, well, do I ever release? And he said, yes, there's a time and place for that. And, but what you're feeling now is magical. And we was talking about getting to this point where you kind of pay attention to how you release or when you're going to do it, and trying to make sure you don't get to that point where you're so passionate that you kind of feel like exploding, monitoring that and cultivating that. So through this whole process, I learned how to cultivate my sexual energy, find connection with the person that I love, and grow spiritually. And I'm excited because, again, I'm a beginner in this process. But I could tell all the men out there, if you're losing connection with the person that you love, if you feel like your relationship is not working out for some reason, if you have sex and after you have sex, you just feel like, oh, I'm done, or you don't feel that connection no more, or if you can't keep it up in bed, or if you're having these problems as a man, look into cosmic sexuality, learning yourself, understanding this connection, and trust me, you can explore this new world and really bring new life into your relationship, and hopefully bring the person that you love in with you to expand on this beautiful concept as I know it to be, cosmic sexuality.